Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, quick turnaround for us after the big 3-1 win last night for the Loons against the Houston Dynamo. We'll get to that later on in the show, but let's start off. Pleasantries, introductions. How are you doing this morning?
I after a rebound game from a loss and a 10-day break, really good. I mean, I'm tired, but good. It was
Yeah,
a really, really kind of slow first half. What a great second half last night. Really, really
yeah,
fun for the fans.
absolutely. Some wonderful goals scored, and we'll get to those. We got plenty to discuss. We've got Gold Cup qualifiers or quarterfinals coming up here. We've got Club World Cup. We've got so much action. MLS, excuse me, in action last night across the league. So plenty to discuss. Let's start with. I'll start with Gold Cup. Let's start there. Why don't we?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Quarterfinals coming up on Sunday at US Bank Stadium. US taking on Costa Rica, Canada in action as well at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis against Guatemala. We got to see Tanny and Dane at the stadium last night. Dane was awesome enough to pop on the radio broadcast for us with us for a couple minutes. That was awesome to talk to him. Thank you for stopping by, Dane. But your thoughts on the US qualifying as first place in their group and taking on Costa Rica on Sunday in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I mean, I'll get to the thoughts. I'll just kind of also kind of reinforce. It's really nice for this massive summer of soccer with so much awesome soccer being played in this country that combined with our game last night, and now we get the fringes of this summer of soccer now in Minnesota at US Bank Stadium. So excited for that doubleheader, USA versus Costa Rica and Canada, Guatemala. It's exciting, that they're in town. And I'm not trying to name drop, but you had Dane there last night, not because he's at Minnesota United right now, because he's with the Canadian national team. So he had some players in the Canadian national team there. Tani and Dane got, kind of honored at halftime. My old world, and not trying to name drop, but Jesse Marsh, I got to spend some time with him during the game, and he got to experience Allianz Field last night, which was really cool. And it's another example of when you get to host such a venue like we have and plays so well. He was really impressed and really loved the atmosphere and the fans, and actually sang Wonderwall with the fans last night as a fellow Midwesterner. I think he really enjoyed that. So, long story short, to the Gold Cup itself, and then we'll go back to our game, which has some, like I said, some nice elements of people watching last night. I feel like it was three really good games by a young U.S. team that you know didn't play that well against Switzerland. I think performed admirably against Turkey. I just really enjoyed them. I mean, again, the competition level wasn't obviously Switzerland, but there were elements of what we're trying to look for. I think the fan base is trying to look for in terms of just that kind of fight and grit. And it was nice to see these young guys get out of the group with 3 wins and 9 points.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the 3 wins was certainly helpful in kind of restoring a little bit of faith going into this tournament. That was definitely shot after those friendlies. When talking about Canada and Dane St. Clair, would be remiss to mention earning his second trip to the All-Star game, along with Michael Boxall earning his first. Excellent rewards for a great first half of the season for both of those guys. Well deserved for both of those guys. Absolutely. Can't ask for better performances from them in the first half and getting their rewards for those performances.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Super cool. Dane shutout machine this year. Pretty easy to kind of look at him as being one of the top goalies in the league this year. And certainly for Michael Boxall, a pillar of our club, both on and off the field for close to a decade now, and deservedly. Not just for the amount of time, but just the quality of play he's put into the group, and our defensive stalwartness is very evident, and the rest of the league is very aware of how good we've been defensively. And he really has been such a great leader on and off the field for Minnesota United. So cool event with him. Dane was obviously traveling the Canadian national team. So got to announce that up here at training where his family came up. We had some kids in the community make signs, and the players announced it with them. And I think the people who were at the game last night saw that on the video board, the kind of video of that. But it was a super cool week. Again, he doesn't really, he's as tough as he looks on the field. He is a very quiet, humble guy off. So it's really hard to pull him out of getting emotional or getting excited about these kind of things. He was probably more effusive when he talks about Dane becoming nominated as opposed to himself. So it was nice for the club to kind of set up a moment to kind of give him some accolades.
Yeah, I know, Dan. We had Michael Boxall for our pre-match player conversation on the radio broadcast in the pre-match show, and Dan and I, we've talked to Boxy a couple times, a handful of times over the years, so we know that he's not too quick to talk about himself. He'd rather talk about his teammates and especially his goalkeeper. So Dan started off the conversation. All right, let's get it out of the way. Let's talk about you for a little bit. And Boxy was pretty short with that answer, but then when we talked about Dane, he had quite a bit to say and was happy for him. So
Does not
Boxy.
surprise me. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does not surprise me at all.
love it. Let's go back to the Gold Cup, jumping around kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
When you look at the four teams, or the eight teams, excuse me, in the quarterfinals, USA, Costa Rica, Canada, Guatemala, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Panama, Honduras. Who do you peg as the favorite after what you saw in the group stage?
I'm still pegging Canada as a favorite. It's funny though how quickly things can kind of perspective and change.
Yeah,
After that Honduras game, I think everybody was like, Canada is right now is the best team in the region. Now, obviously, I think Canada is even missing three or four starters. I think I would probably be a little bit more in the minority now, where I think a lot of people are picking Panama as the favorite for the rest of the Gold Cup, which is a credit to Mr. Harvey and that team and how well
yeah.
they kind of handled that group. I still think Canada right now is the team to beat, but I really liked how the U.S. went about that group play. I mean, that I think there's some really good momentum going into the knockout round for them. So I think you could make it a toss up between those three teams as the favorite. And Mexico's on the outside looking in right now. They looked a little shaky and just not quite themselves, which they've been that way for the last 3 or 4 years, if I'm being honest.
I love this that, as much as I'm a U.S. men's national team and U.S. soccer fan and I want them to succeed, I love that there's this actual competition in CONCACAF now that we've, over the years, over the past decade or so, really built up some of these other nations. And now it feels like Panama, Canada coming in as the favorite, but Panama, Honduras, these teams are really good. It's not just, it doesn't feel like it's just down to the US and Mexico every single time in the Gold Cup. As you said, now it's Panama is feeling like the favorites going into the knockout rounds. That's really awesome to see. And I love that it feels like there's even more competition in the Gold Cup than it feels like there's been in the past.
Yeah, yeah, and again, I still think it's like I said for the big ones. They're missing some big guns.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. This isn't the quote unquote eight teams of kind of the bigger Canadian or bigger U.S., Canada, and Mexican national teams. But I would say it certainly is showing that the growth of the sport in North America is very healthy. It is producing players not just for the U.S. but also for the North and Central American and Caribbean countries.
So who wins on Sunday at US Bank Stadium? US, Costa Rica, and Canada, Guatemala. Who wins those two games and moves on?
Oh, USA and Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, Canada's basically playing El Salvador again. It's a very similar kind of team, similar kind of level.
Mhm.
So that probably to me is the more favorite. I think Costa Rica is a little more complicated for us because, this is a team that was maybe the Panama of the region for the last couple of decades. They've dipped a little bit. Well, they've got a guy like Alejandro Bran, our guy on loan, banging in bangers. It's not going to be an easy game. There's no doubt. And we've got a lot of young players still that are experiencing a knockout round national team game for the first time ever.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this tournament and seeing how the knockout rounds develop. Speaking of knockout rounds, we're getting there with the Club World Cup. And I know you were trying to convince John and I to get into it last week on the podcast. I've gotten into it a little bit more as the tournament's gone along, as group stage has gone along. Your takeaways, and I think you mentioned that you were going down to see Boca versus Bayern at the
Yeah.
weekend. So,
Yes.
one, how was that? Because that game looked awesome. What a great game between those two teams. But also your thoughts on how the Club World Cup has developed over the past couple days and weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I'll start with I didn't love the way FIFA kind of rolled it out, and
Yeah.
maybe even looking at our country and with the World Cup coming up, and it's fair to say it felt and it feels a little bit like a money grab and like
Hmm.
the US is kind of an ATM. I kind of mentioned that I think maybe in the show last time where that's both the positive and negative. The positive is that it means that this sport is loved by so many different types of cultures and groups, and we are growing as a sporting country in terms of soccer becoming a much more relevant player within the mainstream big sports in this country. It has some hiccups. There's some smaller minnow teams, and there's games that have been played at 12 and 2 o'clock. And you're not going to get the crowds,
Yeah.
and really, especially when they're kind of some countries that are not really well known and aren't really big global brands. But you mentioned I had the honor of being a guest for Allianz, and we obviously have a great sponsorship and partnership with Allianz USA, and our stadium is unbelievable, and it's a great family. And then a guest of Allianz Munich with their beautiful stadium, and I will just put it succinctly. I think I saw the greatest live sports event I've ever seen in the USA.
Really?
It was 67,000 Boca fans passionately excited about showing the rest of the world how much they love their team and really the opportunity to play, I think, one of the top five clubs in the world in Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
So I think that my takeaway is there's something this tournament in the future. And part of me wouldn't be surprised if this becomes bigger than the World Cup in 12 years.
Really? Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
the part I've loved about this tournament, and there hasn't been a lot, to be honest with you, because as you said, it's felt like a cash grab and it's really hard to not see it as that. So it's taken a little bit for me to get into it. But the thing that has really hooked me is the passion of the South American fans
Yep.
coming out and showing their love of their teams and the sport. And the way the South American teams have taken it to every single opponent, especially the European sides, wanting to show wanting to show the world where potentially the best soccer in the world is played. I mean, everybody always bangs the European drum, the UEFA drum, that it's the best soccer in the world. But these South American teams, they're taking this tournament seriously, and they have been taking it to team after team. And it has been really, really fun to watch those teams go at it, and especially those fans bringing the atmospheres into the stadiums that they have been.
It really is. And the reality is it's shown a, a gap in the market in terms of there's some big South American clubs, there's some big MLS clubs
Mhm.
now, and we'll bring up Miami in a second, that have an opportunity to play against some of the best teams, club teams in the world in meaningful games.
Yeah.
And it's just never really happened. And to see that explosion of passion and these, you're right, the game's bigger than Europe. And we sometimes just really kind of gravitate towards Europe because that is the top of the pyramid in terms of money. Well, there's a ton of money on the line for all these games, and all the European teams are showing up because they would like to win a lot of money. And the South American teams are showing up because both they'd like to win a lot of money, but their fans, even more so, are so excited about the opportunity to play against some of these teams that they've never been able to play against in meaningful games. So, again, I think there's a gap in the market where the challenge will be the reality is that there's so many events, and we need 14 months probably to actually get them all in. But I do think they'll fine tune this and figure out where to do it because I think it's there. I think there was enough, and I do think it'll even get bigger in these knockout stages now. I
Oh,
think there'll be a little bit more momentum now, based on the fact that it's going to get some momentum. I'm bummed that the Boca fans are out. I think we lost a great fan base,
yeah.
but I think the games become bigger and bigger. And hats off to MLS. I got to be honest. Before we go to Miami, I thought Seattle had three very good games, played very well, showed very well,
Hmm.
showed competitively the level of MLS. And again, the uniqueness of MLS, these aren't always our best teams in the moment, particularly because, Seattle's a little bit down within the league right now. But certainly, I think they did well. And LAFC really, I think two of their three games were great. And then they had one game that they really should have probably won, and they lost to against the Tunisian champions and kind of knocked them out of it. And so our last team, Miami, what a great run. They were,
They've impressed me. I'll be
yeah.
honest, they impressed me. I didn't expect much from them in this tournament. They had a tough group, they had some tough teams, but with some of these performances that they've pulled off, I mean, wow,
Oh yeah,
they've absolutely
beating
impressed.
Porto, European giant, and then people could say, oh, it's a one-off, but then following it up with minutes away from winning the group against Palmeiras, a
Hmm.
team that had I think $300 million of transfer market value on the field, really really impressive and really exciting storyline with them now playing Paris Saint-Germain, Messi's former team. Just you couldn't make it up, and it happened because Palmeiras tied up the game in the last seconds, last few minutes of the game against Miami.
And they almost scored a winner because some bad
Yeah,
defensive play at the end there, which go figure, Miami's defense almost let him down and almost booted him from the tournament. But yeah, impressive run for them. Absolutely impressive. I did not expect much from them in this tournament just based off the way their roster's built and the group that they were going into. I figured this would be a tough one to get, probably the toughest one to get out of. of the MLS teams. One of the things that I haven't liked outside of the cash grab, I got to be honest, and I know it's been a talking point, the German teams and hiding away from the heat. It's like 86 degrees in some of these cities, and they're sitting in for the first half. The substitutes are sitting in the locker rooms like it's the hottest thing they've ever experienced. I don't know. There's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of comments that that's weak, and I have to agree with them. I'm not impressed by that. I mean, it's the other teams are sitting out there just fine. I get it's hot. You have the hydration breaks, but we really need to hide in the locker rooms for it from it.
No, and I think this is what I kind of alluded to in terms of, the 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 kind of Eurocentricness sometimes of the sport because they
Mhm.
do have the biggest league and has the most money and they pay the most at the top of the pyramid. But you've got continents like the US and North America, you've got Africa, Asia gets really hot.
Mhm.
You've got these places that soccer is a global sport and it is tough to run and play for 90 minutes in different types of conditions all over the world, including in Europe when you have windy, rainy, tough days. They have their own issues
Yeah.
that I think some of these other climates, we don't adjust quite as well. So I think the nice thing for me, it's a nice reality, a nice reminder that it is a global sport that's played in a lot of different climates. At the end of the day, to your point, it's the U21 games are going on in Europe right now, and they're playing in the heat and not complaining. So I think it's a little bit of them trying to have these weird subconscious defense mechanisms going on because soccer's hard and it's hard to beat good,
Yep.
tough opponents. And by the way, that they should beat. That makes it even harder.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been one of the more weird developments of this tournament is these teams hiding away from the heat as if they won't be playing next year in the World Cup, and some of these players will be. So be interesting to see how they develop that. Let's jump into MLS match day 20 action across the league. Before we do that, though, as we mentioned, Michael Boxall, Dane St. Clair named to the All-Star team. When you look at the All-Star team, do you feel like there's any snubs from across the league, guys that didn't make it that you
I
thought
mean,
should have?
this is a great question because I've not done my prep work to really look at the roster and think about it. So I don't have a good answer for you there at all. I'm going to go back to you and say, give me your thoughts, give me your quick who are the snubs that you're frustrated with? Because I have no answer.
I'm gonna go super homer on it. I think Joaquin Pereira. He's been outside of, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I think he's been the MVP of this team in the first half. I know there's a very good shout for Dane St. Clair to be that as well, but I think Joaquin Pereira is a lot of has a lot of reason for why this team has been so successful this in the first half of the season. I think he deserved it. I know that's a tough position to make it at in this league. There's a
And it's
lot of
just a
guys.
tough reality. We already have two. It's
Yeah,
really it's pushing the box to get three players on this team,
right.
given that we already have two. But yes, okay, that's a good one.
I think that's for me. Just kind of looking over the roster. I don't know. I think for the most part they got most of them right. David Acosta is a little weird to me, but I guess I understand it.
Yeah, it's a little bit
Portland,
like
you need to have one from Portland, and he's been one of their best players.
yeah, and you got the commissioner's pick, and then obviously I think the coach is going to they have take a Austin player, so Brandon Vasquez makes sense. Although from a level standpoint, it's
Yeah,
controversial, but from hosting the All Star game, I get why they put him in there.
for sure. I mean, and you mentioned picking the Austin player, Brad Stuver, when you've got other goalkeepers. I mean, only having Dane St. Clair, Brad Stuver, and Yohei Takaoka when there's been some really good goalkeeping
No,
this
it
year
really
across
has.
the
Yeah.
league, and there's a lot of goalkeepers that I'm sure will feel a big snub at this one. So I think the goalkeeper department is where the biggest snubs will come for that. When you look across the league, then at a busy match day 20, some of the results that stick out for me and on the rundown, Philadelphia Union 1-0 win, road win over the Chicago Fire, which we'll see at Allianz Field in a couple weeks' time. A big win for Philadelphia as they continue to just be the class of the league at this point in the season. First place in the Supporter Shield, and it feels like they're running away with it already.
Yeah, outstanding road win and road result, especially for Chicago. I think you probably can look it up. They haven't been great at home, but they've been really good on the road this year. So again, as we kind of prepare for a team that plays well on the road, the Open Cup game is massive. We're 3 wins away from a championship, and we got a team that probably is losing a little confidence from their home results, but again, they will seem to play much better on the road. And hats off to Philadelphia right now. They really are have seemed to kind of transition from their longtime coach in a really positive way, and great balance offense and defensively as well.
I will be honest, I did not expect Philadelphia to be this good under Bradley Carnell. After moving on from Jim Curtin, I was a big Jim Curtin fan and what he was able to do over the last decade in Philadelphia. And I did not expect them to be at the top of the league,
Sure.
20
Yeah.
games into the season
Yeah.
under new management, away from one of the better managers in the league. And they have absolutely impressed me. Chicago Fire, as you said.
By
Uh,
the way, yeah,
yeah.
I just I like them too because it's a similar market slash kind of roster build spend as
Mhm.
Minnesota, and so it reminds us about the parity of this league is still the opportunity to build something where you can be successful, and we're certainly proving that this year as well. By the way, I'm not diminishing us because we are right up there as well. But it's nice to see teams like us being successful in a league of parity where there are some teams that are really putting a lot of money into trying to win.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you look at some of the top teams in the league, there's not a lot of those teams that are the big spenders that are sitting at the top of their conferences right now. And
Yeah.
that's fun to see that you can succeed and be very successful without having to spend 30-40 million dollars on your roster. Uh, as you said, Chicago Fire, 1-3-4 at home, 6-4-0
Oh,
on the
there
road.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is wild. I did
Yeah.
not realize that is that different for them away from Soldier
Right.
Field. That is wild.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. It's
The
a.
Soldier Field effect is real. By the way, have you seen the renderings for the new Fire Stadium?
I have. Yeah.
That
Very
is
impressive.
going to be beautiful.
Yeah. What an amazing support and growth by their owner. Obviously, they opened their $100 million new training facility right in downtown Chicago. This stadium will be similarly right in a great area of Chicago and super exciting. I mean, the it's another great example of some big cities really getting some beautiful stadiums. Obviously, Miami, I was just down there. That work is being done right now, and it's
Hmm.
really exciting to see they had the shell of the stadium kind of up already, which is pretty cool. And then obviously NYCFC is plugging away. It's slower than they want, but it's going to come and happen in Queens, and then now in downtown Chicago, Soccer Stadium. It just the future is bright for the league. There's no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Just waiting on New England to get their downtown stadium
Yeah,
now.
there you go.
The biggest result, though, of the weekend came late Western Conference action, West Coast action. San Diego just taking it to Vancouver. Now, Vancouver, to be fair, are missing a ton of guys due to international calls, but still, San Diego just taking it to Vancouver, taking the top spot in the West. That result surprised me a little bit with how dominant it felt from San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt Vancouver's roster is depleted, but a lot of teams right now, given all the summer of soccer, have depleted rosters, and I think it lends to the reality of how good they were against us, and we
Hmm.
talked about that, and they really were. And then if you think about that third goal by Ilaski, a native of San Diego, UCLA grad, didn't play in MLS before he went to Europe for a little bit. 4 goals last night in
4 goals in
Vancouver.
12 minutes.
Unbelievable, by the way.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And he started the game, so it's not like he was a super sub. He got those goals within the run of play as well. So what a night for them and what a night for San Diego. Are they top the West now?
They are, yep. They
Yeah.
are top of the West
Yeah.
by 1 point.
Okay.
Though
So
Vancouver do have a game in hand, but still, you take the top spot in the West 20 weeks into the season.
yeah, they just
That's
beat
not a
the
fluke.
other two teams in the top of the West with us in San Diego and Vancouver. So hats off to them. Hats off to this young man for just blowing out in the league. And again, he's not traditionally their starter, which is even more
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, they've been super impressive in their debut season, just continuing to pull a St. Louis and stay at the top of the Western Conference. Another new team in the league doing well in their debut season. San Jose keep plucking away at their quest to get to the top of the Western Conference. A 4-2 win over Dallas, FC Dallas last night. All 6 goals scored in the second half. 2 red cards for Dallas. This was probably the wildest game of the night. I believe they had a little bit of delay there with rain, if I'm thinking correctly. Otherwise, that was the Colorado match that definitely had a rain delay. That one went well into the morning. But Dallas, San Jose, 4-2 in all 6 goals in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the MLS After Dark. It's so fun for us, especially when we win, and you kind of get the remnants of these late night games. And it was a wild one. There's no doubt about it. What a nice road win for San Jose, scoring 4 goals. I mean, they still kind of leak goals more than I think a team that will get to the top of the West. But what everybody's talked about, Bruce really has their offense humming, and they put a lot of pressure on teams, and that's why their 2 red cards happened. It's because they were relentless attacking in the second half, and it's a tough result for Dallas at home, where I think they're trying to get their ship aligned the right way, and a really good performance by Espinoza, had a couple great assists. Yeah, they're sneaking up there,
They're
definitely.
fun to watch.
Yeah, they
It
really
feels
are.
like you don't know when you go into a San Jose match, you don't know what you're going to get, and that's fun to watch. There was elements of that last year with the Galaxy, especially early on in the season when they were shipping a lot of goals, but they were also scoring a ton. This feels very much a little bit like that, where you saw that at the Galaxy the beginning of last season. So fun to watch. Sporting Kansas City, two second half stoppage time winners, goals to get the winner against Charlotte, a
That
smash
was
and grab.
wild, wasn't it? And
Yes,
Mason Toya, former Minnesota United player, starting the comeback with the first goal. So that was very exciting. Big result for Sporting KC.
ready to join the next generation of Loons? All fans 12 and under can join Minnesota United's Kids Club. We've got 2 membership options that can get you team swag, special perks, and the chance to win some exclusive opportunities like attending MNUFC training. Visit MNUFC.com for more info. That's a smash and grab if there ever was one. All right, let's jump into this Houston game from last night, Manny. Plenty to talk about here. 3-1 win for the Loons. I'm sure we'll spend a ton of time on the second half, but chronologically, let's start off with the first half. When I talked to Eric Ramsey before the match, he expected some clunkiness due to the time off, the 11 days off, and obviously not being able to train over a good chunk of that time off. So when you look back at that first half where it ended 0-0, there was some feistiness at the end. There was the long delay with the VAR look, and we can talk about that as well. When you look at that first half, do you describe it more clunky or more scrappy? Because I've seen both in a definition of that, what we saw in the first half.
Was there a first half of soccer?
I don't know that it
Uh,
was soccer. There was a lot of physical play from 21 fouls in the first half.
yeah,
That is the
let's
stat
say
that stands out the most.
no. In all honesty, I mean, I think it was probably important that we dealt with Houston a little bit, and really with 10 days off, coming off a tough home loss. I think that the group really wanted to build into the game, and Houston, to their credit, I thought was good at disrupting us going
Mhm.
forward, and really kind of won the ball back quickly. But they really didn't do a lot with it. So to when you think about the first half, I can't think of a good chance on either side. Maybe Markanovic kind of half strike that kind of went to the side netting, but it wasn't really threatening either way. Like you said, a lot of fouls, a lot of set pieces, a lot of disruption. If I'm being a little bit critical of the refereeing, I thought it was chunky calls, which allowed the
Mhm.
players to even kind of draw more fouls that maybe weren't even fouls. So yeah, I'm going to stick with that. There really wasn't a first half.
Yeah, we got to halftime and I was just trying to think of how I'm gonna talk through 15 minutes of halftime a halftime show trying to describe what happened because it wasn't the cleanest. It wasn't the prettiest version of soccer that we've ever seen. The refereeing was up and down, some letting some physical play go on, then calling it late and trying to bring back the control of the game. It just felt all around it very much felt like both teams and the referee were trying to get back into game action after some delay or some stoppages over the last couple weeks across the league. So then we get to the second half, and the energy shifts for the squad. The momentum changes. You get the first goal from Bongi, which when you look back at it, he sticks his leg out. I don't know how much he knew about where that ball was, but what a goal from him. It should obviously be up there for one of the goals of the year because just an incredible acrobatic just move to stick your leg out like that, bend it around the defender, and just kind of pop it over Jonathan Bond for the opening goal of the match.
Yeah, my brain goes, the first thing that happened is I got a text from my wife that said, "Well, that's adorable." Um, and
Yeah.
it had nothing to do with the goal. It had to do obviously with the
Yep.
storyline of Bongi scoring, his family coming here for the first time ever, his little brother, I must be probably, you know, somewhere around 18 months, maybe to 2 years old, and just picking him up for the celebration. And it was just an iconic moment of raw awesomeness about what sports is all about. Um, and so I really kind of appreciate my wife giving me that kind of perspective because I was in the stands and couldn't quite see how I saw him do it, but I didn't see it until I saw it afterwards about how special that must have been for him and his family. But you're right. I think the goal changed the game. If I'm being honest, it
Yeah.
was our DNA of how good we are at set pieces and how we can kind of turn a game around with our set pieces, which has been a strength of ours. I'm going to disagree with you massively on Bongi not knowing what he was doing. I think 100% he knew exactly what he was doing. That feels like something that he would try to pull off based on the fact that he's kind
That's
of
fair. Yeah.
just a kind of a eccentric way of finishing sometimes. And I just, it was unbelievable. I thought it was so clever. I think, the defender was very physical in the first half, particularly with Yeboah and kind of getting up and holding guys. And I just think Bongi used that to his advantage. And he kind of, out of the corner of his eye, kind of saw the goalie cheating for a ball, probably not going to be lifted up and over him, but kind of coming to the end line. So outstanding goal. Like it changed the game. And after that, we just opened up in terms of how we wanted to play and really move the ball and create chances.
Yeah, after that, you felt like the energy certainly picked up from the Loons. The players are flying all over the pitch in the immediate aftermath of that goal when the play restarted. And I don't know how many goalkeepers are going to expect that ball to be popped over them in
Oh,
those instances. So,
great. Yeah,
yeah,
really just so clever and just even the fans had to kind of pause before they cheer because they're like, did we just see that? So
if you listen back to our radio call of it, Dan's not even calling it because he's going into a read because he didn't expect anything, and all of a sudden you just hear me go, "Oh!" Because like it wasn't expected that a goal was about to go in, and then so we had to change what we were doing right on the fly there. But
so
that's
basically, are we saying that you guys were kind of a little bit lackadaisical with the call there in
we're
terms
caught
of
off guard.
yeah, okay, all right. That's
He
that's why
was
I said Bongi did a good job there. He
he
had the
was
whole
looking. Dan
whole
was looking at
stadium
his
fluffed the
notes.
call. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan was looking at his notes for something, and then all of a sudden the throw in goes in, the header goes on from Jefferson Diaz, and it's Bongi just kind of acrobatically sticking his leg out in a way that you rarely see and popping the ball over. But as I said, and as you mentioned, the energy shifted for the Loons. They really came to life after that. And there's no better example of that than what Anthony Marcanic did on the second goal. Just catching the Houston defender kind of waiting for the ball to drop to him so he could clear it. And Marcanic just uses his speed to get his head on it, push it to the end line, and then just firing a low pass into Bongi Hlongwane, who made an excellent run in front of the Houston defender to blast the ball into the back of the net just 3 minutes after the first goal. Some really well worked play there, really great hustle from both of those guys on that second goal.
Yeah, I think now when the fun part is talking about the next two goals are really, really good soccer goals
Yeah.
with good movement, good passing. On the second goal, and I love how we kind of scored a great kind of unexpected goal, and then we didn't just sit back. We really started to play well, and the triangle that was created there where the ball came back to Will, and what a great weighted pass for Will to release Makanovich. Now Houston's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Two great touches. And if you look, he did have a chance to maybe try to play across Yeboah, but out of his corner of his eye, you saw Bongi's run was just super smart. I mean, it was really caught the defender off guard. Markanovic kind of hesitates and takes that extra touch to compose himself. And just great goal, like a
Yeah.
great team goal, great movement. Even Yeboah getting in the box played a key role in that goal because you needed to have other options in the box for Bongi to get open. And again, I give the entire team credit for, wanting to get a second right away. I give particularly Will and Anthony and Bongi and Yeboah the movement of all three of them, the composure to really expose that Houston kind of got disoriented a little bit defensively. It was outstanding. And that 2-0 now we're really excited at home. And that's a really tough position for any team in the league to be down 2-0 to our type of team is a really good place to be in.
Yeah, the Loons kept flying after that, and that led to probably one of the best passes you'll see this season across the league. Julian Gressel, just one-time pass around the entire Houston defense into the box, just out of reach of Jonathan Bond, and gets the ball to the far post to Robin Lode, who had the easy part of putting it into the back of the net. But man, I when that pass went in from Julian Gressel, I couldn't believe what an incredible touch that was from him. But at the same time, thinking that's why you get this guy. That's why you go out and make the acquisition that you did at the transfer deadline, because of that play that he can do. That he's probably one of the few right backs in this league that can make that pass. And man, what a pass that was from him.
Yeah, I would say even players on the field, whether right back, center midfield, like it's his one touch passing. I know my dad, as obviously as a former coach, just loves to see that type of skill, that type of ability to both create the right kind of pace and the right kind of just quick thinking about I'm going to execute this and really put the team off because I'm not going to take that extra touch. A little bit different than Anthony, where Anthony had to compose himself.
Mm-hmm.
Julian was put them off guard because it was such a great. It was like a Kevin De Bruyne high level assist of a global proportions. It was just an outstanding pass, outstanding movement, and really, it took Robin to believe that Julian has that in his game. Like if Robin at all hesitates, then that play doesn't come off the right way. So it just shows how good Julian is at the passing, that Robin understands how good of a passer he is to make that run.
I got to ask this question. I asked this to Dan in the post-match show, and you mentioned Julian's passing. His set piece deliveries last night were excellent. It felt like they were all dangerous. The corner kicks, the free kicks that he took. I don't want to start a controversy, but do we have a free kick or a set piece taker controversy now? Joaquin Perea has been the one who's been taking them for the majority of the season, but Julian Gressel was consistently putting in dangerous ball after dangerous ball last night. I don't know. It was one game, so it's small sample size, but I was so impressed with how dangerous every single set piece felt with Julian Gressel delivering those balls.
No, I think you just get excited that we talked about how set pieces are so important for how we play and how we kind of
Yeah.
navigate finding ways to score and ways to kind of really hurt the other team even when we don't score. So to me, I just get excited when you got two guys, one right-footed, one left-footed. The staff works very hard on our set pieces, and they take a lot of pride in both defensive, offensive set pieces. So for me, I think it just opens up, different ways of trying to break teams down with in-swingers, with out-swingers, and two guys competing to show that they're better at set pieces than the other guy. Hopefully there's some good, healthy competition.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how those develop for the rest of the season. Key moments in this match. Let's go back to the first half, the end of it. The penalty call that ended up not being, but was a yellow card for Michael Boxall. And after about 7 minutes of VAR looking at it, still undecided on it was VAR, and they ended up not giving the penalty, rescinding the penalty, but giving a free kick just outside of the box, but giving Michael Boxall a yellow card. I don't understand what happened there. From the replays that Dan and I saw in our booth, in our monitor, it didn't look like there was much there. I don't know that that's a yellow card, but there we are at the end of the half with what looked like it was going to be a penalty, but ended up not being, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the referee probably wanted something to do in the first half because I could not understand the call. Like Michael Boxall tackles the ball,
Yeah.
and after you get the ball, yes, there sometimes is physical contact with players. That's how you tackle in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
If you get the ball first and you go through, sometimes you hit the guy. Everybody knows that's what happens. It's okay to actually have the two guys kind of collide after you hit the ball. So um, the amount of time it took made no sense. The call made no sense. The yellow card made no sense. I don't want to actually think about the play anymore because it makes me just think about the referee who had an off day. And thankfully it got righted because it really would have made him be more of the talking point today
Yeah,
as opposed to, our great second half.
for sure. One disappointing moment out of the match was that last goal from Houston, minutes away from Spiel getting a bounce back clean sheet, but a good bounce back from him. Had a couple moments where he's called upon and really came up and delivered for the Loons. Not really over the entire 90 minutes of this match. Really had much to do because the Loons defense did a really good job. Houston really struggled to break down the Loons defense, but unfortunately for him, doesn't get the clean sheet because Amani Bassi decided he was going to be a jerk and mess that up for the young kid. But you like to see a good bounce back performance for Vessel Spiel after a difficult game against San Diego.
Yeah, I like the first half. I'm just going to block out the last goal. Just say we won 3-0. No, it's a tough league. Teams are going to try to come back into it. We got caught a little bit, maybe defending a little bit soft on the cross there, and then that kind of put us a little bit out of sorts. But Wessel had a very, very good bounce back game. To your point, I was very happy with how the group and defensively were like, hey, we are going to help this young guy make sure he's not going to be caught in anywhere where he's going to lose some confidence. So ultimately, for me, I was really happy to see the group play so well and Wessel play so well from a game against San Diego. Like I said, we didn't have our best outing. It was really nice to see him get his first ever league MLS win. Correct?
Yeah, his first
Yeah,
win in the
awesome,
league. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. Was there a goal at the end? I can't remember.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Final thoughts from you on this match before we shift to previewing a quick turnaround for the Loons, a game on Saturday at Sports Illustrated Stadium against the New York Red Bulls.
No, I thought it was a really fun night for the people that weathered the weather and showed up because it was a crazy day. It rained all day. I knew the crowd was going to be a little lighter than usual just because of how much rain we got all day, but it did play great for the game. We didn't have the rain during the game. The field was outstanding and just a great bounce back game. Great second half and this is once again now after every loss we've had this year we've had great performance bounce back games. So really impressed with the group and the staff and their ability to kind of keep the guys focused for 10 days to come out and get a game that we should have won last night and we did. So that was really nice. And it's a short turnaround. Guys will be in this afternoon, a regen session where they'll have to get their bodies recovered. Red Bulls are one of those kind of teams that, have done well. That they're not like the top of the East, but they're a tough team. They're tough at home and they tend to play physical. They tend to press. They're not quite the old school high press 90 minutes, particularly with Forsberg now. They try to relax a little bit and move the ball a little bit more. So this will be a good challenge, road challenge for us with 3 days rest.
Yeah, it's a Red Bulls team that's coming off of last year getting to the MLS Cup title game, losing to the LA Galaxy. It's been up and down for them. They've struggled with a lot of injuries. I know they had three guys go out with injuries and a concussion yesterday in their game in their 1-1 draw against Toronto. But this is a team that is the exact opposite of Chicago. Very good at home, not great on the road. 7-1-1 at home this season, 1-6-3 on the road. So this is going to be a tough environment for the Loons to go into in New Jersey on Saturday, but one that they've gone into and I believe gotten a win in the past, if I'm remembering that game a couple years correctly. It's a couple years ago, so forgive my shaky memory on that. But this is a team that in the Red Bulls that has struggled with a lot of injuries lately, Manny, and they are certainly dealing with that. And they've also got the Felipe Carbaggio situation looming over them where his contract runs out. His loan contract runs out at the end of the weekend. So we'll see whether he plays or not.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's one of their key players. But it's going to be an interesting matchup this weekend for Minnesota against the New York Red Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, 7-1-1 at home. This is a really tough game for us. Tough on a 3-game turnaround, but again, I also think there was some nice energy about how the guys played last night. So I'm looking forward to the challenge of it and kind of pushing through this month of June and into a lot of games in July now.
When Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting came in the offseason, I believe, did you expect him to have the impact that he's had on this team at what is he, 36 years old? We talk about Michael Boxall being 36, not really playing like it. Neither has Choupo-Moting. 10 goals on the season so far. Did you expect him to have the type of impact that he's had on the Red Bulls when you saw that transfer come in this offseason?
Yeah, I think he's those kind of players where like it reminds me a little bit of like Christian Roldan in Mexico right now, where if they're coming from Europe and they're hungry to do the things they're really good at, um, then yes. But if they're coming to be like, oh, the tail end of my career and I want to, just score a bunch of goals and kind of like not work that hard. And so I don't look at the goal production by him. I look at the fact that he didn't start out hot. He had to work his way into the team and season by being a good hold-up player, making good runs in the channel, pressing well, all things that he did really well for the Red Bulls team early on. I think he's earned the goals he's scored because been such an honest player for them, and that's what they needed. And it doesn't matter if you're 25 or 35, if you're doing the kind of little things to build into the team getting better month over month, that's why the goals are coming for him. Versus him being like, yeah, find me the ball, score a couple goals, but they put a lot of pressure on the defense because he's not doing the work on the other side, or he's not relieving the pressure by holding the ball up and getting out. So ultimately, I think his style suits the MLS, if I'm being honest, because he is a blue collar, hard worker type player.
Yeah, he'll be fun to watch potentially this weekend. I mean, he didn't play last night in their 1-1 draw against Toronto. So Toronto side that's 1-3, lost one, drawn one over their last 5 matches in league play. Pulling up the standings here, sit seventh in the Eastern Conference, 28 points in 19 games. As I said, 7-1-1 at home, 1-6-3 on the road. Very different away from New Jersey, but they'll be in New Jersey this weekend. Loons heading back out to New York. The last time they were there, they got a big win against New York City FC, so we'll see how that goes for them this weekend. Emil Forsberg, 5 goals, 5 assists this season. He's been excellent for them. Which one's the more, I guess, is outside of those two, who are you watching from this Red Bulls team that has a lot of youth because they build up through their academy and their development system? Outside of those two, obviously game changers for them, who are you watching and who are you excited to see for the Red Bulls this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more personal. You know, my son goes to Duke and plays soccer, and he played his freshman year with Peter Stroud. I'm not sure if he's injured or not, but he has been such a great two-way midfielder, and he kind of, to me, gives the personality what the Red Bulls are. You have these players that are full-on committed to pressing and hunting the ball down when they want to, but they're also pretty good with the ball, and they've got some smartness with them. And so I would say I'm probably looking forward most of Forsberg and then the supporting cast because he really is the catalyst. He has shifted a little bit of their style from just all press and go crazy for 90 minutes to now, hey, we've got a player that really can kind of dictate the tempo, is creative with the passing, really kind of is our player that will decide when we go a little more crazy and when we kind of slow it down and move the ball. So I'm excited about seeing him and seeing the cast around him, how they kind of operate. And like you said, he's been great and lights out at home in doing that. He's been a little bit quiet and kind of hasn't been able to find the game when he's on the road. So again, I think he's got to be the player to watch for us to be successful on Saturday.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Carlos Coronel, their goalkeeper, 7 clean sheets on the season.
Yeah, he's a good goalie, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's solid. I mean, that's another. You mentioned the competitiveness of the goalkeepers in the league. He's sneakily one of the better goalkeepers, I think, as well in the league.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the midseason awards that have been kind of handed out in from analysts across the league, he's up there for the goalkeeper of the year. I know a lot of them are putting him in the top 3 for sure. 7 clean sheets on the season, 76.5% save percentage on the year on the shots that he's faced. So it's going to be difficult to beat him. What's the key for the Loons to come away from New York with all 3 points this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of making sure we get hungry about doing what we're great at on the road, which is, again, our defensive shape and organization and commitment to box defend and in terms of making sure that we don't create waves of attacks. And then obviously, I think Will and Owen had a great game last night. Them just building on their connection together. I think they're getting to know their strengths and weaknesses. So us being able to kind of keep that shape defensively, but now Owen and Will even finding ways to go forward. Obviously, Julian and Anthony both had great assists, so them picking and choosing the moments to be impactful offensively. And then I thought Kelvin, he didn't get a lot, but I mentioned his movement in the box for Bongi's goal. He had a couple moments where he almost got in behind, but he made the runs that pushed Houston back and really kind of, I think, made Houston a little bit more nervous about sending numbers forward. So I think it's a big game for Kelvin to show how we can get forward and get out through him. And if he's doing that well, I think the rest of the team follows behind. And you got Joaquin should have fresh legs, and he had there. Robin, great goal, so excited for him to come back into the game. So again, I think it'll be a good group that should be excited to go on the road and show what they can do.
Owen Gent's kind of flown under the radar here over the last month. We've talked
He had
about
a great game last night. Great game last night. He and Will were outstanding to me. And what I liked about their game is they just got better as the game went on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, the first half that I blocked out, they were fine. They just started to build in the game. They started to win the midfield. They started to hunt the ball down, and probably for the most of the first half, they were played a lot more backwards. But by the second half, they were doing a much better job of turning, looking up, and finding ways to break lines and get the guys forward.
Yeah, I think that's been the most impressive thing for me. It's just it feels like a very consistent play from Owen Jen, not up and down from a youngster like him, like you would expect to see from a kid at his age getting his first lengthy starts. But in this league, granted, he comes in with over 100 starts in France, so it's not like he's getting his first starts ever at the professional level. So, but it's the consistency from him, not really up and down. You're not having these wide swaths of really good play and then really poor play. It just feels very level headed from him. And it feels like he's growing into his midfield role with Minnesota United over the past couple weeks.
Yeah, he kind of just floats around the field, but
Yeah.
it's athletically. It's not like I say, floating a slow way. He really glides and gets to the good spots, and it's exciting to see what his future is like. Because, like you said, he has really performed admirably, particularly against Seattle in Seattle and last night. And I just really liked how he and Will really built into the game. I didn't think they had their best first half, but I really felt like they didn't do anything to not have a good half. It just was a quiet
Mhm.
half, but they really upped the level and really turned the screws in the second half for us to get forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree on how the midfield performed. Looking forward to this one. This one should be a really fun one, really interesting one that we don't get to see often. The West versus the East, Minnesota United versus the New York Red Bulls in New Jersey this weekend. Looking forward to that, Manny. Good stuff from you today. We'll talk to you next week. Plenty to discuss. We'll recap this game at New York and then preview the July 4th game, a rare Friday night soccer game.
Unfortunately, it'll be 2 weeks. I will not be here next
Okay.
week. So
Well,
that'll be
well,
two
Loons fans will
Loons
preview.
fans. They'll have you. They'll have
Yeah,
you.
me and a special guest. We'll figure out who that is in the next week. But previewing, you're gonna miss out on previewing Friday night soccer with
I
us.
know. I know. It's tough.
Minnesota United Friday night soccer.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know you'll hold the fort, do well. So yeah.
Yeah, plenty to discuss in that one. FC Dallas on July 4th, then the international friendly, and then the U.S. Open quarterfinals, excuse me, against Chicago Fire. We'll preview it all next week and review this upcoming game against the New York Red Bulls. Looking forward to that conversation, Manny. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks' time.
Cheers.
Loons fans, thanks for tuning in, and thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, and Evan Nutler for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you next week.